So today I want to give my opinion on Real Madrid and what I think their season can look like going into this season, which is such a very hard video for me because I was very critical of Barcelona in that video to the point where a lot of Barca fans might not even agree with me or even be mad at me for the things I said. And the same is going to be said for the Real Madrid fans because I don't think that either of these teams had a good offseason. I don't think that either of them had a good summer. And I think the transfer window just wasn't the best for Real Madrid. Did they improve in places they needed to improve? I do think so. I think they have a better right back now based on Carvajal being injured last year. I think their left back maybe's improved. We'll talk about that. And they got a really good center back, but does that mean their back line is improved? Right? You take all these things and then you start to determine whether Real Madrid is going to have a good season or not. And again, this video is very hard for me because me saying that Real Madrid is going to be way better is me agreeing that Ancelotti was low-key part of the problem. And Ancelotti wasn't a good manager. And that's just not how I see it. I don't think that Ancelotti is a bad manager. I don't think that Ancelotti was the problem at Real Madrid. I do think Ancelotti's lack of using certain tactics throughout games or changing tactics and just believing in the players he has is a problem. I do think yes, I do think that's a problem with Ancelotti, and I think it'll be a problem at Barcelona. At Brazil, I think that Ancelotti's the type of coach that kind of just lets his players be the players. And when you have star players, sometimes it's amazing, right? But you saw how great Liverpool did with the change of tactics and formations and manager ideas when Slot came in. You saw the difference between Xavi and Flick, right, at Barca. But going from Ancelotti to Xabi Alonso, this is not the same. Going from Klopp to Slot, listen, I see it. Going from Xavi to Flick, that was a massive upgrade in tactics and manager, right? This Xabi Alonso, I don't think it's an upgrade from Ancelotti. I don't really think you can upgrade from Ancelotti. I do think tactically there's going to be a massive upgrade if Xabi Alonso goes into the season the way he should go into the season. Now, a lot of people will say, what does that mean? They should play a 5-back. And I know that's not Real Madrid football, but when I say a 5-back, I mean what Sporting played and what Manchester United is playing now, what we've seen many teams play. It's a 5-back defensively, and it's a 3-back going forward. Real Madrid has this because they have one of the best right backs going forward in Trent. He might not be the best defender, but we do know that offensively he is unbelievable. And same to be said with Carreras. Carreras played at Benfica, and going forward, he was a monster. The guy has good step overs. The guy has the ability to beat the 1v1. The guy has a good cross on him. But I have seen him in the Portuguese league get burned defensively. If he goes up against a fast winger, he has a hard time. With that being said, he did really good against Lamine Yamal in the Champions League. So there's still a lot to be determined with Carreras. Will Carreras even be the starting left back with Fran Garcia there? Because I really don't think Fran Garcia was the problem at Real Madrid. I think the problem was more the center backs. And I do think that Dean is a massive upgrade, playing the ball out the back. Defensively, we still will see how good Dean is as La Liga goes on. But what makes the 5-back so good for Xabi Alonso, especially with this team, is Dean, the center back. Why? If you look at why Ruben Amorim was so successful at Sporting, and again, I'm a Benfica fan, so I watched this formation play out heavy, and I was so annoyed because it's so hard to break down. But having a player that can play the ball from the back and is good with his feet is huge. Sporting had a player called De Bast, and they also had a player called Inacio. And Inacio is incredible passing the ball out the back. And when you play this 3-back formation, the over-the-top balls, the playing out the back with a center back is huge because there's times where the team will rotate and that center back that could play with his feet will end up looking like a defensive mid, and it'll kind of shift into a 4-back for a little bit. So this formation can go from being a 5-back to a 4-back to a 3-back, depending on how it plays out. When Dean breaks out, now you just drop Carreras, you drop Trent, you got a line of 4 with Dean looking like a center back, so like a defensive mid. So there's so many it's why it creates so many mismatches in football, and it's so hard to play against this formation with the right players. So if Xabi Alonso does what he did at Bayer Leverkusen, by the way, this is what Bayer Leverkusen did. They had Frimpong, who's unbelievable going forward, a Grimaldo from the Benfica, man, that's unbelievable going forward as a left back. He's very similar to what Carreras was. So if they do this tactics and these formations, I do think Real Madrid will be extremely hard to beat. I think they'll be extremely hard to beat. Why? Because when the center back makes this mismatch, right? You now have to guard Caretas or Trent going forward. And the moment that the left back or the right back of the other team goes to guard that person, it kind of leaves an opening for you to put an over the top ball or a through ball. And when you leave this opening, having players like Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe with that type of speed, it is very, 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 very destroying to the other team because the gaps that it creates. So if Xabi Alonso steps into this and doesn't go, oh, this is Real Madrid, we got to play a certain way, I think it could be very successful, but I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to use his 3-back. I think he's going to try to make it work for the players he has, and I don't know if that's going to be successful because, again, I don't see Barcelona didn't get worse. Barcelona is the same team. They got help with Rashford when they could register him. They're going to do the same thing in La Liga. It really comes down to Real Madrid having to be more competitive against Barcelona. And I don't know if a 4-back with the center backs that they have is good enough to win La Liga. The gaps are too much. This defense looks constantly exposed, and Courtois looks constantly stressed out because there's always shots coming in at Courtois. He's always bailing them out. Their defense is just not good. Even with the back line of Asensio, Rudiger, Trent, and Caretas, or flip it to Dean, you saw in the Club World Cup that team was still, without Caretas because he wasn't there yet, was still very stressed out defensively. Teams put a lot of pressure on that back line. That back line didn't know what to do. That's why I think switching to 3 center backs would be huge. Even more because Tchouaméni could play center back and DM, which means when you're in this 3-back set, 3 center backs, allowing Tchouaméni to be the one that drives the ball forward. Again, like I told you, when it shifts to a 4-back, now you have Dean and Rudiger as your center backs and Tchouaméni as a defensive mid. Tchouaméni. So it works out. But I just don't know how much better Real Madrid got. I do think that Trent is a huge addition. I do think that Dean is a huge addition, but I don't know if they solved all their problems defensively. And I also still think they have a massive problem. And the problem is, how do we use Rodrigo? How do we utilize him? Is the team stronger with or without him? And more importantly, is this midfield great? And that's the biggest question here. The biggest question mark is this midfield great? Because I do think the pressure and the stress that this defense is under is because the midfield doesn't put enough pressure on other teams. Valverde runs like a maniac. And Jude Bellingham runs a lot. And Camavinga runs a lot. I know a lot of people go back to, well, Skills, come on, man. We won the Champions League with these guys. You did. But you won the Champions League with Toni Kroos in there. And you won the Champions League with Modric in there. And when Toni Kroos is in there, it's kind of like, when you rip a piece of paper or something, and then you're trying to put it back together, and you can't unless you use tape. Exactly. Toni Kroos is tape. I don't know if that makes any sense. Toni Kroos and Luka Modric are glue and tape. And they're so good that they mask what's really wrong in the midfield. The same thing with Barcelona. Pedri is so good that if other players aren't performing, you can't tell how bad that defense, that midfield might be because of how great he is. That's what greatness is, man. When there's players that are great, you really, really can make a midfield extremely better. And Toni Kroos and Luka Modric did it for years. Iniesta and Xavi did it for years. There's players that just make midfields extremely better. And I don't know if Madrid right now has a player in that midfield that is the glue in the tape. They have incredible players, Valverde, Jude Bellingham. They have it, but who's the tape? Who's the glue? Who's the leader? Who's the one that's organizing and orchestrating the midfield? Who's the coach on the field, right? All these things are so important. And I know a lot of people will be like, that's crazy. It's not. It's really not, man. Having a coach on the field, in the middle of the field, organizing stuff and being able to bark orders is important, man. And I just don't know who does that for Real Madrid. I don't know who's that guy in the middle of the park for Real Madrid. Real Madrid brought players in, young players. And Real Madrid brought players in. But I don't see a leader. I've been saying this for years at Real Madrid. I even said it so much that I remember it went on like the gram, and Tony Cruz, Sergio Ramos liked it. Um, I said something along the lines of just like, who's the Ramos of this team? Who's the leader? Who's the voice? Who's the guy with the hunger? And they brought in a bunch of younger players. Who's the leader? Maybe Dean's gonna step up and be the leader. Maybe Rudiger's the leader. Maybe Chouamani's the leader. I don't know. But it feels like this team is lacking a leader in the middle of the field and maybe a leader in the back as well. So I hope Real Madrid has a fantastic season. And for that to happen, I think Vinny has to get back to what Vinny was a couple years ago. And I think Mbappe just has to do what Mbappe did last year and put up 40, 50 goals, right? And then Vinny has to be back, right? But just remember that Jude Bellingham is going to miss some time at the beginning of the year due to the shoulder operation he took. So who's going to step up during this time, right? Who's going to be the type of player that steps up so much that when Jude is coming back off of injury, that you're kind of like, damn, how do we slide him in now and give a headache to Xabi Alonso? When one player goes down and the next man up, the man that comes in should put so much pressure on a manager, because you're Real Madrid and they're all supposed to be insane. You're supposed to put so much pressure and play so good that when Jude Bellingham comes back from injury, that you're like, damn, I know he's going back in, but this is really hard for me to make this decision to put him back in because of how well this player played. And I just don't know if Real Madrid is going to be better this year. Again, if Xabi Alonso steps in and puts the tactics that he did at Bayer Leverkusen, and he uses the formation he used at Bayer Leverkusen, and he puts the players in correctly to what he likes, I do think this Real Madrid has a very good chance to be very strong with these players. But if it's just the same formation as last year, I don't really see how they've improved. I know Trent is good, but that's saying that Carvajal is bad. Carvajal is not bad. Trent is very good. Carvajal is not bad. He was injured, right? Dean is amazing, but is it the answer and the piece that makes this defense 100% amazing and not getting scored on? You know what I mean? Y'all let me know in the comments down below. It's been your boy Skills. I love you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. We out of here.